Yes, what's good everybody? Welcome back to Chat Sports TV. I'm your delightful host, Nick Dais, at The Lamb Show on all social media outlets. Make sure you are checking me out on the socials. Back with a New York Knicks report here on Chat Sports. We got some rumors, we got some updates, and once again, we are going to get our hopes up at the end of the video, as we always do as fans of the Big Apple. Kicking us off, the hashtag Fire Fizdale is then in play for one Coach Fizdale, who is coming out the gates with a thunderous, absolutely tremendous 1-7 start to the 2019 NBA season. The New York Knicks are dead last in the Eastern Conference with yet another double-digit loss this season, their last outing against the Detroit Pistons. David Fizdale has been taking shots at the media, saying that they need to get over some of the questions that they're asking him. A lot of bad coaching decisions has led to David Fizdale being potentially a guy who could get canned without even completing half the season yet for the New York Knicks. 10 new guys on the roster for the New York Knicks, so he does have an out because he is still managing to see who fits with who and what his second and third unit guys are going to be. Hell, even his starting lineup has taken a hit with some injuries to the backcourt. But Fizdale has not shied away from being a guy who is very controversial with the media. Remember his time over with the Memphis Grizzlies, he had the famous quote that became one of the top selling t-shirts on all NBA Twitter, "Take that for data." Fizdale is a guy who does not hold back his comments when being asked questions. And my question to you guys is, how do we feel about Fizdale entering year 2 with the New York Knicks? He came in as one of the hot young coaches in the NBA, a guy who has proven himself with not much superior talent to work with over in Memphis. Now, I know he had Marc Gasol, who's still playing at a high level, and Mike Conley, but he was shipped out of town over in Memphis. So, weigh in the comments below. Let me know how you guys think of Fizdale as a head coach for the New York Knicks. It's just a head coach in general when you're looking at him in the NBA. One of the main reasons why people are kind of outraged with Fizdale and the New York media and a lot of New York Knicks fans is how he is handling not only RJ Barrett's minutes, but how he's using him in his offense. And look, the Rookie of the Year campaign, folks, is in full-fledged on because he is averaging 18, 6, and 3 in his young NBA career. He's also averaging 35 minutes per game. And a lot of the issues stems for an outing earlier last week where in a double-digit loss, he ran RJ Barrett to the ground, playing him over 41 minutes. And that is not something that you should be doing to a young guy. I understand that he's just 19. And that was a quote from Fizdale where he said, "Get over it, he's young." And he referenced Latrell Sprewell, who back in the day was averaging close to 40 minutes a night with the New York Knicks. But here's the thing. Just because he's young doesn't mean you should run him to the ground. There is no reason why in a double-digit loss, the most valuable asset the New York Knicks have going forward for them, and the reason why people are cautiously optimistic, keyword cautiously, because let's face it, it is the New York Knicks, and they've had gold in their hands before, and they've had it melt away. Now, the thing with RJ Barrett is just because he's young doesn't mean we should abuse him. Remember what Thibodeau did in Minnesota with Karl Anthony Towns and Andrew Wiggins. It was games in April, 2-3 games less than the regular season, and he's running those guys to the ground, 40, 42 minutes. As a daily fantasy player myself, I was always taking those guys because I knew Thibodeau was going to leave those guys out there no matter what the circumstance was, no matter when in the NBA season it was taking place. And that's what we don't want to happen with RJ Barrett. Look, he's going to have some growing pains. He's going to hit the rookie wall because, hell, they all hit the rookie wall. But RJ Barrett, I got to say, I am loving what I'm seeing from the Rook. He looks the part. And to me, one of the biggest factors when I'm judging a player, especially a young player, is the simple eye test. Do you look like you could be a guy in the last 4 or 5 minutes of an NBA playoff game that could command the room, command the floor, and take control of an outcome in the game? And I think RJ Barrett could do that. At the moment, the consensus around a lot of sports books in the sports betting industry have him as the leading candidate for NBA Rookie of the Year. I want you guys to weigh in. Type RJ, obviously, for RJ Barrett if you think he is the Rookie of the Year through roughly 7 to 8 games, give or take, every team has played. Or type F for the field. And if there's another rookie that jumps out to you, is it John Morant? Is it Kobe White? If there's anyone out there, let us know who you think should be the leading candidate right now for NBA Rookie of the Year. Another guy who has the New York Knicks media and the New York Knicks fan base outraged with how he's being handled is one, Mitchell Robinson. What has happened to Mitchell Robinson? This is a guy who many people in the NBA community said that he was a guy that cannot be traded in any package involving the guys like a Paul George or an Anthony Davis. And you're talking about the cream of the crop, the elite of the elite in the National Basketball Association. And Mitchell Robinson was a guy who was a second-round pick. A lot of issues off the court in college, came and blossomed into a defensive presence. And the issue with Mitchell Robinson is, one, he's gotten banged up a little bit. He still cannot stay out of foul trouble. It's why his minutes are down. And his numbers per 36, if you looked at how much he played on the court last year and stretch it out over a per 36, though his rebounding wouldn't be the same, but his impact defensively was similar to one Rudy Gobert, who's been a countless, multiple NBA Defensive Player of the Year candidate and winner. So he needs to be smarter on the court with his play, not only on the defensive side, but more so in the foul trouble, because it doesn't matter how good you might be, whether it's offensively or defensively. If you're in foul trouble, it's going to be bedtime and you're not going to be out there when it really matters. We were expecting a big leap for this guy in year 2. Now, was the bar set too high? Probably, because we're Knicks fans and we're delusional, which we'll get to at the end of this episode. But we need a lot more from Mitchell Robinson, and we need him to be playing big minutes, because at the moment, the way you look at the New York Knicks roster, there are 3 pieces that we should be building around. We touched on RJ Barrett, Mitchell Robinson, and this next guy who is the most polarizing player in all of New York Knicks social media. It is one, Frank Ntilikina. Frenchy Frank, coming off a pretty good FIBA World Cup run with the French team. Still only 21 years old, and it is probably the only thing that is keeping fans from jumping off the bandwagon of one Frank Ntilikina. He is a superb defensive wizard. His per 36 on the defensive side is one of the elite statistical categories that he is leading in for the New York Knicks, and is one of the premier point guard defenders in the NBA. But the issue is, he gives you close to nothing on the offensive side of the ball. 29% from 3 roughly, and is averaging just over a little bit over 4 points per game with the New York Knicks. And he is not getting the steals that he was last year, but that big wingspan is affecting a lot of players when they're trying to penetrate. And the issue is, when you look at the Knicks, again, going back to the eye test, the biggest concern I have when Frank Ntilikina is out on the floor is that he is not a guy that continues the flow and the motions of this offense. When the ball hits Frank's hands, it kind of dies out, and the offense looks stale when he's out there, and not a lot of ball movement. It's why it looks better and free-flowing when a guy like Elfrid Payton is in the offense. Even a guy like Dennis Smith Jr., who we haven't seen much this year because he has some other issues to address off the court. He's a guy that demands the ball. He is an alpha in personality. He's not entirely an alpha out on the floor, but I do think Dennis Smith Jr. is a guy who the offense just looks better when he's out there, as opposed to Frank Ntilikina. And what I've been teasing all throughout the video is getting our hopes up. Because if there's one thing New York Knicks fans can do, ladies and gentlemen, is be wildly crazy with expectations. And let's have an early look at the 2020 NBA free agents. A list right here. We're going to get our hopes up again, because we once were making videos about Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving and maybe Paul George, maybe a big 3 with Zion. And guess what happened? 0 for 5, 6, 7. Whatever you want to decide it was. But let's take a look at some guys that are going to be free agents this year. And we're looking at Montrezl Harrell. So far, he's having a career year with the LA Clippers. A guy who is on one of the best contracts, team-friendly contracts in the entire NBA. 21 points so far with the Clippers, roughly 7 boards. The team-friendly deal is not going to continue if this guy continues his play. He's playing like an all-star. I'm not saying he's going to be an all-star, but Harrell does deserve to get paid this offseason, and he will get paid, especially if his stellar play continues, right? Another guy who is in the discussion to be a free agent, despite what the organization has given up. And I know our girl Laker Hannah is losing her mind with the idea of Anthony Davis maybe not being a Laker next year. Look, they gave up a lot to bring this guy in, and the least you can say, AD, is say, you know what, I'm going to be a Laker for life. But he is playing that game with, you know, it's sort of that clutch sports factor, right? Clutch Sports, the agents of LeBron James, and they have also the rights to Anthony Davis. They always like to play around with teams. And last week they were playing in Chicago, and he said, yeah, you know what? I'm going to be a free agent next year. Who knows? It's like, no, dude, we gave up a lot of assets for you to come here. The least you can tell the Lakers organization is, you know what? I'm here. You guys shipped everyone out. I'm still 26 years old. Fun fact, Anthony Davis and I have the same birthday. Shout out to the Pisces gang. But Anthony Davis, the least you could do is not drive the Laker fan base crazy. But with that being said, it'd be fantastic if he decided to not go to the Lakers or the Bulls and he came to New York. But why not? Let's not forget Anthony Davis has reminded people that, you know what? I'm AD. I'm a top 5 player in the league. Similar to Kawhi Leonard, right? 2 years ago, Kawhi Leonard sat out. Then he went to Toronto and people were wondering, what kind of Kawhi Leonard are we going to get? And then we realized who he was. Load management, leading to an NBA title for the Toronto Raptors. He potentially could be a free agent. And Anthony Davis. Eric Gordon, a guy who has grown on me over the last couple of years. When he first came into the league, he was a guy who was battling injuries and teams playing him out of position and not knowing where, but he found a home as a shooting guard with the Houston Rockets. And my favorite thing about him is, again, the eye test. This is a guy who has gone toe-to-toe with the Splash Brothers, has been the best player on the court in NBA playoff games with the Rockets, and has played in big games as well. And my whole thing is, if I'm going to pay you big money, this guy is north of 30 and has had injury concerns in the past. Now, is it a lot to do with James Harden spacing out the floor for him to get wide open looks? Is it the D'Antoni system that makes a lot of people flourish? PJ Tucker looks oftentimes like a guy who could command north of $20 million per year. But staying with Eric Gordon, he's a name that could be a veteran presence to school some of these young bucks on the New York Knicks. And I've always been a fan of Eric Gordon. I love what he brings to the table. And last but not least, potentially a guy who can opt out. But it's going to be interesting to see if a guy of his position, Andre Drummond, a back to the basket kind of center, that old school Shaq kind of center. He's averaging close to 20-20 this year, folks. He is absolutely dominating on both ends of the floor. But the real question is, do you pay a big like him the kind of money he might be looking for? He's going to be on the books for roughly $25 million with the Detroit Pistons. He could opt out if he knows he'll be able to get more money. But then again, who knows what you do with this kind of center? Even Joel Embiid, Karl Anthony Towns, we know about Anthony Davis. They space out the floor and they can shoot threes. And that's not something that Andre Drummond really does well. And a lot of times, he's not on the floor in the last 4 minutes of the game because he is a liability at the free throw line. That hack a Shaq, hack a Drummond concept and philosophy that a lot of teams like to implement on guys like him who struggle at the line. So, weigh in below. Once again, as a Knicks fan, I am delusional, I am crazy, and I'm getting my hopes up. But what do you guys think? Way early, pre-Thanksgiving, mid-November thoughts on the free agency pool come July. So weigh in, let us know what you think is going to happen. You want to know my answer? Nothing's going to happen, because nothing ever does happen. We'll probably sign more guys like Reggie Bullock and bring in guys like Taj Gibson once again, and I'm going to be heartbroken. With that being said, it's at the Lamb Show is where you can find me. Nick Dais signing off here with Chat Sports TV.